He's not just a head of marketing for Photo Mechanic for camera bits, but he also is a shooter as well. So I think that was important for us to know. He does a lot of event photography there in Portland, which it falls in line with what we're doing, and that's part of the reason why I thought it'd be great for him to talk to us, is because he does a lot of similar stuff that we do. So, Mick, I apologize for that botched bio. Is there anything I should have said that I'd missed? How long have you been with Camera Bits?
Oh, that's not a problem. I've been with Camera Bits for 7 years now. I think it's so I originally started on just as a technical writer, and I had a lot of digital media experience from my past life, and so it just was a great fit. So I came on and started doing marketing for them, and eventually now I'm the director of marketing.
All right. Well, we look forward to the presentation.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to be here. So yeah, see, so I can go ahead and share my screen right now. We'll get into a little bit of a Photo Mechanic demo. Let's see here. It's step 2. All right. Do you folks see my? This is the Photo Mechanic window here.
You got it.
And so yeah, this is Photo Mechanic is we call a photo browser. Although I never liked the term browser because browser seems too casual for what people usually use it for. It's definitely a photo viewer and metadata engine. It's for going through large shoots of pictures and organizing them, adding metadata to them quickly. Culling is a very big task a lot of people do in Photo Mechanic. So here's the basic interface. This main area here is what we would call a contact sheet. This is where thumbnails would appear. And let's open up a contact sheet. Now this over on the left side here is just a view into your hard drive. Photo Mechanic doesn't store images in any sort of database. At least the basic Photo Mechanic does not. It just looks at things on your hard drive. And a very common workflow would be to plug a memory card into your computer, use Photo Mechanic to copy those images over to your hard drive, and then cull them, go through them quickly to find your rejects, find your keepers, and rate and add some metadata to them. So let's, in fact, I think I can do a demo ingest right now. So what I'm going to do is, we got a memory card in there. So this is, you would pop in a memory card, you see this dialog. You would find out where you want to import your photos. I have them to an incoming folder. I also do some things here. I do some renaming, or I don't do some renaming, but I put it into a folder that puts the model of the camera and the date of the ingest into my folder name. And so I'm going to turn that off for now. We'll just do this real quick. So here we go. Some images are coming in. Here's my contact sheet. This was a sort of an engagement shoot. You can control the size of the thumbnails with the slider up here. This is how they're sorted. The default is file name because that's the quickest. And as they're coming in here, you see there's a status down here that shows the, so this is all complete. So now what I would do is I would double click on the first image, opens up in what we call the preview window. And I can go through, and what I'll do now here is start to rate. Now, I personally like to use star ratings. I can rate any of these photos 1 to 5 stars, or I can use color classes, which are, you can see this kind of widget up here in the upper right-hand corner. So what I'll do is I'll start rating this. Oh, this is a 3. This is a 2. This is a 3. Oh, I don't like that one. 1. I like his little look there. 3. And I'll go through this basically the whole shoot. I can start rating these. And so when I would be done, I would go through in here and say, okay, just show me all the 3s. So I'll go here to this raging widget and uncheck everything except the 3, and I'll see all my 3 stars. If I want to go back to see everything, if I just want to see all the 2 stars. And then I can also add color classes. I'm like, oh, I want to give this one a color class, so maybe I'll do that. Make that a yellow. Something down here, I can make that a yellow. That a blue, and then I can do the same thing with these, with the color widget up here. I can just show the blues. I can show the blues, or excuse me, just the yellow and the blues. And then once I get images that I want to do, I can either, what I can just do is select them all, and I can like drag them into, say, Lightroom or Photoshop or Camera One or whatever else I want to do if I want to do some post-processing. Let's go ahead. Let's go back and turn these all back on. And then another common thing it might be is to add some metadata. So what I can do is select all of these and open what's called a metadata template. Do that here. So as we see here, this is a very extensive metadata template that I can add metadata to all these files. So I can add a description, some keywords, my credit information, always very important. Things like this. There's a lot of different things. And this, by the way, this dialog can be customized. So if there's a lot of things that you never use, you can take them out so you don't see them. But right here, this is sort of the full load. And I can add things, information like that. So that's really just sort of the basic, that's what Photo Mechanic does. It's meant to, so as you see, as I'm going through these images and as I was doing my color, these are raw files, but as you can see, it goes very quickly from file to file. That's because Photo Mechanic uses the embedded JPEG preview that's in the raw file. Most cameras, they include a JPEG because when you press playback on your camera, it's not rendering the raw file to show you that image. They actually include a JPEG file within the raw. So we actually use that same file. That makes it much quicker than if it had to render the raw file. Like Photo Mechanic isn't used for actually doing like the pixel editing or color and whatnot. So it's able to do these things very fast. Any questions so far? Is there anything come through?
Oh, looks like we're no questions so far. Well, yeah, no questions at this point.
Okay. I want to show there's one feature I'd like to really get into, which really helps with particularly sports shooters. I don't know how many folks are shooting sports events, but the code replacement feature of Photo Mechanic is one of the more popular features among sports shooters. So I'd like to go into that. You think that would be a good idea for this audience?
Yeah, there's a lot of sport shooters. At least half of them spend a lot of time shooting sports.
Okay, excellent. So code replacement, just from a conceptual level, is the ability to use sort of a text shortcut that it would expand into a larger bit of text. There are a lot of programs that you can do this on your computer. Photo Mechanic has a filter built in specifically for use with photos. So what I'm going to do here is open up a contact sheet. Now I have some demo photos from a local photographer, Craig Mitchell Dyer. He shoots for the Portland Timbers amongst many other outlets. And now I want to talk about code replacement. So code replacements in Photo Mechanic are generated from a tab separated value file. And I'm going to use a spreadsheet in Google Sheets just to show you what this might look like. So let's go to Chrome here. All right, so here's a code replacement file. So this is something you would set up in advance. There are sites that can generate these for you if you subscribe to them, but you can also create your own. I've created this. So what you'll see here is the first column, which is, this would be the code that I want to replace. So I've used basically what I did is I took the roster file from the Portland Timbers and the Real Salt Lake team as well, and used their jersey numbers as the code. So there's a column with the name, there's a third column with the last name, and the fourth column with kind of the full description of the person. And I would create this, and I'm using Google Sheets, but you can use anything that you want. You can even use a plain text editor, as long as these columns are separated by tabs, and it's encoded in UTF-8, which is fairly common, but it depends on your text editor. So let's go back into Photo Mechanic, and I'm going to, come on, there we go. So I'm going to add this. I have the Timbers RSL. Let's open that up. So now we have, that's going to be my code replacement file. So let's go into this one here. We say, oh, there's one's Beltran. So in this image, let's go into, this is sort of the metadata info screen. It's very similar to the template, but this is only operating on this one file. And we see here, oh, I want to describe, as I'm writing the caption, it's time is ticking. I want to get this on the wire as soon as possible. I can put in, I think it was RS2. Let's see, let me go back to my sheet here real quick. Oh, it just was SL and SL2. So I'm in here. If I just do the coding placement for SL2, it expands to Tony Beltran. If I had done SL2 and then I wanted that fourth column, I would do number 4. SL2. Or actually, that was the third column, right? Yeah, there it is. So then it would expand to this whole thing. So you can load in the entire roster as you're writing this in here. And when you're writing your captions, you can do that. So that enables you to get captions much more quickly because as you know, the time is always a factor when you're doing these sporting events.
So real quick, while we're on code replacement, Jaron's asking, what's the advantage of using hot codes versus code replacement?
I have a whole hot code demo that I'll do after this. Hot codes are not really applicable in this use case for code replacements. Hot codes are usually valuable when you're an editor working with a lot of other photographers. So you're an editor and or just an editor who's got at an event and you've got cards coming in from 4 or 5 different photographers stationed all over the field and you're running the ingest for all of them and cycling and sending them off into different locations, folders, and whatnot. Okay. Hot codes is basically for that use case, and I can get into that a little bit more in depth after this.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. And so in addition to these code replacements, I want to introduce you to the concept of variables as well. So as you see, previously I've applied some metadata to this image, which shows the photographer, the copyright information, whatever. So this information is now available to Photo Mechanic in variable format. So if I'm writing this description up here as a caption, and then I can have something like photo by, and I can just say credit, and I can put in these variables. Let's see, 3, 4, and if I hold on Option, hover over the OK, it turns into eval, and we'll evaluate those variables. As you can see, that information now gets filled in. Craig Mitchell Dyer on 21st August 2013. This again, so you can create templates for this, and so as I'm talking about the variables, if I click this variables button, here's this is all the different metadata that's embedded in the file. For a lot of this, for EXIF data, it's things that the camera has marked in the file, but other things that I've previously added, like the caption, copyright, all this information is now available via variables. So this is kind of a list. As you can see, it's very, very extensive. Things like ISO is up in here. So I can, if I want to somehow write in what's, show me the ISO. There we go, that's there. And so what you can do is you can create templates in here that might say, photo by, as I was doing this before, credit, and you can throw in these things and then you can save it. Go down here, this snapshot button, and you can save this as a template. In fact, let's like this. So maybe you put that. So let's save this. Basic credit in catch. And then if I were to go into a different photo, so now I'm opening this, or even from a whole nother shoot, and I do this, I would come in here and I load in this, I can go, oh, and now this caption is in here, and then I'll evaluate this. and it's going to, again, whatever's in the creator, the credit field will go up. So again, this is the whole point of this, is to be able to have you write your captions lightning quick, as fast as possible. I had one photographer tell me he shot an image of an injury, and he said his photo hit the wire before the player got to the ambulance. So that was that's the reason for this whole stuff. Any questions on code replacements or variables? I know that was a very, very quick intro, but that's
we do have a question that says, asking how do you make unused fields disappear on your stationery pad?
great question. Let's go into preferences. So I'm going to go down here into, I believe it's accessibility. Yeah, here we go. So this was preferences, which I get into by command comma. That'd be control comma on Windows. Come down here to accessibility, metadata template. This dialog comes up, and here we go. I can now uncheck ones that I want to hide. I can rearrange these as well. I can bring the headline up here. I can drag it up. In fact, if you do a lot of work with Lightroom, putting the title object name a little higher up is very handy, because that's something that shows up as the title in Lightroom, but it's kind of hidden in here. So that's just a tip that I would consider doing. You can also, the same thing for the info pane, also has the same type of thing available.
Cool. We've got a couple of questions outside of the hot codes and replacement codes. The first one is it has to do with your caches. Where do you? Let me read it again. Sorry. I'd like to know if we need to clear out caches to improve performance.
Generally,
along with that, I'd add allocation of memory. You know, what's the best way to, how much memory should we be allocating to Photoshop or to Photo Mechanic as well? Those two things for performance.
That really depends on a lot of different things. I don't have a lot of guidance other than our defaults are generally what's needed for the best performance on most systems. If you have specific issues with your system, I do recommend just contacting our support, and they can talk to that a little bit more. We have free tech support that you can either call or email, and they will get back to you within a day and talk to your specific issues or just describe your system. But they do that fairly regularly. As I said, this is in the preferences the same way I got there by command comma. And there's a section here for caching. But I would just say the general advice we give is bigger is not always better. You're not going to start seeing better performance just by making these numbers bigger. It really depends on what you have available, and our tech support folks are really good at sort of giving you better advice with that.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have more specific guidance on that. But we have put a lot of thought into our defaults, so the best performance is usually with the default.
And the clearing out of the caches.
You can set this to remove it. It's older. It depends. Like, I don't remove my caches because I find that they don't hurt performance for me, so I leave them in there. And if I have to go back to a contact sheet from a couple of months ago and I leave it there, it's still going to be fast if the cache is there. It really depends. If you're for some reason hurting on memory disk space, you might want to do that. I would recommend not removing that.
Okay. One more question. Any red flags with using Photo Mechanic to export JPEGs versus a proper RAW converter? Not color correcting or anything, just want to
Sure.
Straight from the camera JPEG.
Yep. So if you're just shooting just RAW, as I said, Photo Mechanic uses the embedded JPEG. So let's see. Let's go back to this shoot here. So this is an example. This is an old CR2 from a Canon, and I can, in fact, save the photo as. So if I do save this, and I can choose to save it as a JPEG, it is going to use that embedded JPEG. So for a Canon or an Nikon, generally, these are going to be full size, very large JPEGs that you can output. and you'll get a good image. You'll get a very good image. Some the Sony cameras, for example, and some of the Fujis, I believe, as well, and others, do not put a full-size JPEG in their RAW files. Sonys are notorious for putting just a thumbnail-sized JPEG. So if you do that with a Sony, you're not going to get a good JPEG export. Like I said, it really depends on your camera model. But it's definitely very usable. I've actually had to really quickly. I've printed some 5x7s out of the JPEG from these files, and they looked good. They looked pretty good. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. Can you set Photo Mechanic to build a full-size JPEG?
What you can do is let's see. So let's do these here. Under the tools window, we have something called Convert Raw to DNG. It's actually in the tool. Let's open that up. So you can create DNG files from raw files that have a full-size JPEG in there, but you're going to have to install Adobe DNG Converter. So I would do this, and I would have to download that from Adobe. Install it, put it in here. But once it's installed, then you can access it from within Photo Mechanic. And that can take a Sony RAW file, build a brand new DNG with a full-size JPEG in it. It's another step, which if you're shooting Sony, I always recommend my Sony shooters to shoot RAW plus JPEG because it's just so much faster. But it's again, it's up to you.
Is there a difference from just extracting the JPEG preview versus saving out the file from the normal save dialog?
Extracting how, I guess it would be my follow-up on that.
Chris, do you want to jump in and explain what you mean by extracting?
Under tools, isn't there just an extract JPEG preview now from RAW?
Yes. So that's a great question. So that save as dialog, as I had brought up earlier, does allow a lot of different things. You can apply some metadata. You can re-encode to do some processing, to scale it, to resize it. If you just wanted the full size, I would probably go with the extract, but you're not going to get anything else in terms of, like I said, reserving this. And another thing, you can add a watermark on those as well if you wanted to do that. There's a whole dialog in here for putting in a watermark. But if you just want the best quality JPEG, I would probably go from the extract from the tools menu, as you said.
Any other questions at this point? Not seeing any on here. And I don't think I missed any so far.
Okay, well, I know there's been a lot of talk about hot codes, and I do have a short bit I can do about hot codes. So we'll close this out. So as I said, hot codes, one use case for code replacements, as I said, if you're an editor, you're at a big game, you've got 4 or 5 shooters around the field, and they're all runners are bringing memory cards to you, popping them in, and you're doing some editing, and let's see. Call up Chrome again. So where is this? This would be in code replacement. What you would have is a code replacement with a serial number from all your shooters, and you'd have some things in here with their name, like get their name, last name, title, and even put like a editor. So you want to assign each of these to a different editor, A, B, whatever, A, B, C, D. So as you remember from code replacements, if you type in this number, it will expand to one of these fields. But we're never going to be typing in the, so here we go. So let's just say that these are a bunch of random files that have come in from different shooters. And we're going to open up the metadata template, right? And let's see, we have this thing, we'll say caption. We're not going to type in the serial number, but we do have the variable. So see these equal signs as we saw, those designate a code replacement, but we're going to use the serial number variable to insert the serial, and we have the number 3 to pick what column. So now we have a caption here that would use the serial number to put that in and say route to editor, and we can apply this till selected, and we say, okay, great. Now let's take a look at this. And Let's see, that did not work as I expected. Let's try this one. So we see there's a lot of, oh, because I didn't load those in. Hold on, let me start this over. Apologies, I forgot one step here. Let's clear these out. So I need to actually load in that code replacement file that I was talking about. So PM parts. So code replacement, let's see, serial number. So let's open that in. Let's remove that other one. Okay, let's start again. So again, I've loaded my code replacement file that I've prepared in advance. I want to put this template in here. So serial caption. Apply that to the selected. So now let's take a look at this image over here. We can see, oh, here's the caption that I've put in here. Image taken by it inserted the name, inserted as title, route to editor A. That worked great. What about this one over here? Let's take a look at this. Oh, route to editor. It didn't show. And why? Because as we see here, there was no serial number. So I had this thing set up to use serial number, but it just didn't work because for whatever reason, this particular shooter's camera didn't record serial in the expected location. This was an image. This was a problem with certain Sony bodies at one point. I think again, Fuji's were different. They were changing it model to model, so it was a little bit unsuspected. So we had this great workflow where I could create this, and I'll open this up in the metadata info so you can sort of see better. This great workflow, which would have all this set up, but if the serial number wasn't where it was expected, this sort of all broke down. So let's do this all again. I've selected. Okay. So what we did, what actually Dennis, the founder of Photo Mechanic, the AP or whatever came to him and said, this is our problem. We have this great workflow. How can we fix it? So he invented what's called hot codes. So I'm going to go back to, so this was the code replacement file that I had been using. Here's a code replacement file, but with hot codes. Now, hot codes is a basic code replacement file with a little bit of extra juice. We see these things in here. In any code replacement file, if you see // it tells Photo Mechanic to basically ignore things in that row. But if we add a few other characters, it tells it to do some things with hot codes. So in this sample file, row 6 here, these are my hot codes, full, last, title, and editor. And it says, instead of looking just for this string to replace with these images, it will go through this whole list of what we call generators. So what I'm going to set up is code generators with these equal signs based on these variables. So yes, we have one for serial number, but we can also say look in the model field, and we can also say look in the file name. Let's see here. The file name, FBAS means file name base. And the 0 through 3 means start at position 0 and give me the first 3 characters. So now I've created a code replacement file. I said, I've got these serial numbers for all my shooters, but I know that Dennis Walker, his camera might not be generating serial numbers, but I know that in camera, he sets all his file names to start with his initials. So instead of DSC, it's DJW and then the frame number. So I'm saying, let's look in the file name base. Mick shooting a Fuji XE2. I know his isn't recording serial number, but I do know he's the only guy in my crew shooting an XE2. So we'll say look in the model field. So let's now load this into Photo Mechanic again. We'll remove this one. And we'll add in one with hot codes. So now let's look at these again, and we're going to go into the metadata template, and we're going to do here's what a caption looks like with hot codes. So we see it's very similar, but now instead of the serial number code replacement, we just have in square brackets full and title. So these are the hot codes. So whenever Photo Mechanic sees in the square brackets full, it goes to the hot code file. It says full, okay. And it starts going down through the list. First, check serial number. Does anything match the serial number? And if there's a serial number that it recognizes, yes, it goes through and it goes what's in the full column. It will show the name. But if it's not, if it goes through all these and doesn't find a serial number, it'll go look at the model variable. Goes through down here and says, oh, if it finds the model, it'll insert whatever's in the full column. So that's this value right here. So let's now apply this to all these images. And we can see that over here, again, now all these things which previously didn't work, now actually do work because this didn't have a serial number, but it was shot with an XE2. So it went and found those variables and the values for those variables in here. And now let's go back to the code replacement file. I can show you one other thing. There's one line in here which just has /s question mark. And this means if it goes through all these things, if you put in, let's say full, and it didn't find anything in serial number, didn't find anything in the model or the file name, it sort of as a last result, say insert whatever's in the comment field. And if that's it, just put unknown. And we have this for an extra editor here. So it added the extra feature of you can do a code replacement, but if there was nothing to replace the code with, it actually gave you some sort of default variables. So because for some reason, some cameras will actually throw, if you in camera set your name, it will put it in the comment field. So we said, okay, use the comment field. And we said with this image, we didn't know who it came from. It was unknown, but for some reason in the comment field, was an actual name, and it's Maggie the Murder Hornet. That's so that we did have a name there. And I wanted to show you as well. So let's select all these. Now, one common task would be now to route these. So I'm going to open the copy move dialog, right? And so I want to move these photos, and I can use the hot code, basically the editor field, and I can now route all these images. And in my hotcodes demo, see, it has now created on the fly these folders. So everything that was assigned to, let's close this. Everything that was assigned to editor B is in here. Everything that was assigned to editor E, that's the one unknown. Everything that was assigned to editor A goes in here. So that's the value of hotcodes, is being able to do code replacements in a very advanced way from multiple variables and throwing in that sort of catch-all. If it doesn't find anything, use that. It's like I said, it's probably of limited use if you're just a single shooter. I'm sure someone will find a way it could help them, but it's designed to be used for someone who's shooting with a lot of different shooters and who are bringing in files that may not all have the same metadata available in the file.
Well, quick question from Chris.
Yep.
Any chance you have any idea on when they'll activate the naming part of the hot code space, since you're limited to a single one right now?
See if I understand the question. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking in terms of the naming.
Chris, you want to explain?
Some of the early documentation had that you could name the hot code space in the top where you would do // hashtag, but it doesn't seem like it's activated.
No, it is. That's what I've done here with the full, last, and title and editor. They are named. These are the column headers. And if we go back into Photo Mechanic and look at that, I've used those names. It's in the square bracket, full, title. That's, is that what you're asking?
I might have just read it wrong on some of the early stuff. I thought you could add a name in the first column where you declare it, and it would have be able to leverage different pages. I might have just read it wrong. Sorry.
Well, I guess when Dennis wrote this up in his sample, he had this row up as the first file. I just put it down here near his, because for me it makes more sense to have it above sort of my things. You can put this row anyway. This could be the first row in your file if you want. Yeah, that's.
Does that help, Chris?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now I'm getting a lot of several people asking about the Photo Mechanic Plus.
Mhm.
You,
Yeah.
I think that's our next question. Is we'd like to see, understanding that it is a beta version. We'd like to see a demo on Photo Mechanic Plus.
Yeah, I'm ready to do that right now. Let's do it. I'm going to close out Photo Mechanic here. And I'm going to launch Photo Mechanic Plus. So Photo Mechanic Plus is basically it's all Photo Mechanic with the additional feature of what we call a catalog. So here's Photo Mechanic Plus. As you see, it looks very similar to Photo Mechanic. There's a contact sheet here, your navigator. But there's also up here, there's a little sort of switch to the catalog feature. So let's actually create a catalog. I don't have one done here, but let's something new. So I downloaded Photo Mechanic Plus. I need to create a catalog. Let's scan to catalog. Style that comes up here. Scan to catalog. We're going to do the defaults. Now we got to pick some folders. So I'm going to add an entire external drive. Got a SanDisk plugged in here. Let's do this incoming folder. So let's do that, and we'll clear on completion. Let's start. So here's the scan. We've got the status over here. We've scanned the folder. I'm gathering the metadata. I think there's about, I think there was like 1,200 images in this folder. If this is much larger, this can take a while, this sort of metadata gathering, but I'm working with, like I said, maybe 1,200 to 1,700 images here. So this is all happening fairly fast. Grind through here. And then in the catalog, you can do searches through all your metadata. You can kind of filter based on different flags. The browse is probably one of the more interesting things. Let's clear this and we'll make sure that's checked. Here we go. So here's the browse. So everything in this file I can go through by capture time. I can see what I've got here. I guess there's only a couple hundred on this drive, but so I can see everything on a date, everything. And so here's March. Here's all the folder pictures in this folder from March 2020. So everything basically loads as a contact sheet. So now I can go through and all the same controls that I would have in regular Photo Mechanic. I can start adding metadata to these. I can start rating, adding color classes, captions, all the same stuff you would do in Photo Mechanic. I can now do this. So now what I originally said about Photo Mechanic is that it doesn't put anything into a database. With the catalog, it does. These images are now in a database in the catalog. So that if I unplugged this drive, that SanDisk drive, I could still work on these images when the drive is unplugged. But then I would have to resync after that's all done. But I can also do like a search in here. So I think if I do search for cars, here we go. So there's all the car images. And you can see it's fairly fast, although this isn't a huge collection. I've seen it work on collections with a million image files, and it's still very quick. We've done a lot of work of like pre-caching. So if you're looking at a contact sheet here with a million images, it'll start pre-fetching as you're scrolling.
So Glenn's asking the question of can the catalog feature work in a server environment?
I guess that all depends on what you mean by work. It depends. I guess it depends on what tasks you want to do. And I will say that this is definitely not feature complete, especially in those areas. So the version 1 might not have a lot of things that you might expect for working on server. But I know, for example, like I do have a catalog that I've put the entire catalog itself on a removable drive, and I can take that portable. I can plug it into a laptop. I can plug it into something, and it's all very self-contained in that environment. So if you had some files on a server and you were able to access them, you would have some catalog functionality. But in terms of like setting it up on a server and having multiple people access it, it's probably not at that point yet, although that is the ultimate goal.
So the best use of it is
what I was after.
okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now, how large does that catalog folder get? I mean, if it's on my laptop and I've only got 4 terabytes or whatever on my laptop, and I've got tons of photos. I mean, you have to worry about the size of the catalog overwhelming your computer.
That's a good question about overwhelming it. I mean, it does generate these previews, and they are fairly small, but they can add up. Let's see. I'm not sure exactly how large they might get.
I guess for an example, I know with Jaron put out something recently that they have a million photos a year that you guys put into your catalog. I know we in our shop, between the 5 of us, we're not far behind that, somewhere around 750,000 images a year. That can get pretty big.
Okay, so I'm looking at my, so I have a catalog here, a big catalog on an external drive, and this catalog has about 80,000 images in it. And the catalog file itself the database is 1.2 gigs. So depending on how many photos, that's about the size. So like I said, this is a catalog file with about 80,000 images, and it's 1.2 gigs for that database.
Okay. And my question would be, as you're ingesting your photos, say I'm going through my regular daily action of bringing in my cards. I've got 4 cards from a shoot. I ingest that. If I'm in this program, does it automatically put them in the catalog, or is there an option I have to select to have them add to that catalog?
That's a great question. Let's see. Yeah, so here we go. In the ingest dialog, if you're seeing this, you can auto catalog, and it will add to whatever catalogs you have here that have add modify checked.
Is the catalog making a full copy of the raw JPEG file?
No, it's creating this image preview proxy, and it's getting the metadata, but it's not copying the entire raw file, no. It's still putting the raw file wherever you would tell the ingest normally to put it. So if you are putting it on an incoming, like I said, I put an incoming thing, it will, that's where it will tell the catalog that where that file exists, wherever you initially told it to put it.
So say I have multiple hard drives, and I want to go find a photo from 2016. It's on hard drive 5. When I search through the catalog, is the catalog going to tell me, okay, you need to go plug in hard drive 5, or how does that work in the search function?
It will show you the proxy preview. And I think if you were then to look for the file, it would tell you the path name where it's expecting it. So it would say, this file was on volumes, like /volume/HDD, and then whatever you've named it. So it would tell you that.
Okay. Any other questions on Photo Mechanic Plus that you guys have?
So yeah, again, this all depends on the metadata that you've added. So it's not going to, if I do a search for sunset, if I haven't tagged anything sunset, it's not going to show me anything unless I've gone in and add those keywords or however. So in a search, you can options in here. I can do snapshots of different searches. Filters, I can do a new filter based on ratings. I can add, do that. I can do anything down here. If I want to do a filter, just show me things from a certain serial number to any of the IPTC data fields that we have. You can filter by that. You can do multiple, you can create a bunch of these. So if you want a very complex filter, you can do that and save that to create those.
What DB language is it using? And MySQL, is that?
It's not MySQL. I believe it's, I don't want to say for sure, but I think it was SQLite, but I'm not 100% on that.
And does it, is there a date they plan to leave beta?
No, there's not a date because this is, we're waiting for it to sort of hit a critical thing. We don't have a date yet. If we did, we'd love to put that out there. We've in the distant past, we did start talking about planned dates, and when we didn't hit them, the fury and outrage could not be contained. So we've decided to not mention dates until we're 100% sure.
How about smart galleries?
Smart galleries, I'm going to confess that I don't know too much about them. I know that's something that the collections feature in here is not something that I've actually done a lot of work with. I know that the collections do exist, but I can't actually comment or use these quite yet. Okay. Unfortunately, I apologize for that.
And we have a question of price. Do we have any idea? Is it going to be exponentially more expensive than Photo Mechanic, or is it going to be in that same price range?
If you wire to my Swiss account $5,000, I will get you. No, the Photo Mechanic Plus will be a different cost than basic Photo Mechanic. You will be, if you have basic Photo Mechanic, you can pay the difference to get Photo Mechanic Plus. And there's not going to be an advantage to doing it, either buying it up front or buying it in pieces. But it won't be it won't double the price. I'm going to say that. But the final pricing has not been finalized.
And refresh my memory. What is it? It's like 140, 130?
So a new license of Photo Mechanic right now is 139.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not going to double the price, but the whatever that is not yet determined.
Are there any other features? One other question: is there an education discount price for Photo Mechanic?
There is. If you belong to, short answer is if you have a .edu address, you can get 60% off a new license.
Good to know.
And the way you get that is you have to actually email us at our support@camerabits.com address, or through our web forms from camerabits.com. If you do that from your .edu address, you can get that discount. But what they do is create a special coupon code for you, a one-time single-use code on a case-by-case basis.
Cool. Are there any other aspects of Photo Mechanic Plus that you'd like to share with us at this time?
Let me think. So right now, Photo Mechanic Plus is available as a beta to anyone who has Photo Mechanic 6. If you have a valid Photo Mechanic 6 license, you can go into the way you get it right now is, let me call this up. So bring this over. In our user forums, which is at forums.camerabits.com, we have a Photo Mechanic Plus beta support section, and the actual developers behind Photo Mechanic Plus are in here. And a lot of these questions, if you ask there, they'll do their best to answer them as well. There's a lot of traffic on there. But if you go to the announcements section, we have a post for Photo Mechanic Plus beta, and here are the downloads right here. So, and there are information about what's changed in the beta. The betas do expire fairly regularly. So if you downloaded a beta, it will probably only last for about a month, and then you'd have to come back and reinstall the new version. Yeah. But yeah, that's available to anyone who does have Photo Mechanic 6.
All right, so we're down to about 10 more minutes. To reiterate Glenn's questions, what are the things that users should be taking advantage of with Photo Mechanic that they often don't know about?
Great question. I think using the variables for me has been a real eye-opener. The variables combined with the code replacements has been a revelation. I wish I had had this when I was shooting a lot more music festivals, because so this is one example that I've been toying around with, and it's really worked well. So if I go to a music festival, right, and I'm shooting 10 bands in a day, and if I could go through in advance and create a code replacement file. Let me call this up from let's see. So I could create a code replacement file that would have folder names as my code replacement. So I could have something where if I shot every different band from a music festival, put it in a different folder in camera, I could have then a template that when I'm in Photo Mechanic and I have this, I could have the band name, the stage name, separate keywords based on each separate band, automatically populated as long as I did the prep work up front, so that when I ingest the files, all this stuff would be done. I would have the caption, I would have all the keywords done, which would save me so much time after the festival as I'm going through, and I have enough on my plate to worry about the pixel editing. But when that's done, to have all the captions and the keywords done as I send them off to the publication, it's really like it saves like hours and hours of time for me. Being able to master the mix of code replacements and variables has just been such a huge thing for me.
All right. Anything else that any other aspects you think we need to know about?
Another cool feature I think is the if you do a lot of things with GPS, one of the more recent features of Photo Mechanic is, so if I have GPS coordinates, I don't have any GPS tagged files with me, but this will actually go through, take the GPS data, look it up, and fill in the city, state, province, country, the ISO country code automatically. It's a service we offer that it actually goes, it takes the GPS coordinates, contacts camera bit servers, does a lookup, and then fills in this information automatically. That's kind of a new, we call it reverse GPS lookup. That's a great feature if you do a lot of stuff with GPS. That saved a lot of time as well. That's what this globe button is for. It's go to, it will contact our servers and do that lookup.
Cool.
But there's another, I didn't cover it, but a real basic thing is just our uploaders. So if I have a bunch of images here and I need to send them to an FTP site or my Flickr site, or I have some space on Amazon S3, or I can even publish to Twitter, or Photo Shelter is one thing I use. And we have all these uploader templates in here. So I can go straight from Photo Mechanic into Photo Shelter, Twitter, all those sort of things. That's very helpful. And one of my personal favorite tips, it's Photo Mechanic, but in the Lightroom Export, if you're using a Lightroom Classic, if you do an export in Lightroom Classic, so I've taken my images. For me, it would be some concert images. I take them into Lightroom, which is just, again, I would select them in here, and I would just drag them. I would collect them all, just drag them into to Lightroom. When you do a Lightroom export, at the very bottom of the Lightroom export module, it says open in program after you do the export. If you select Photo Mechanic there, it's very helpful because I can do some like final last minute metadata tweaks if I want to do my metadata at the last step. The fact that it will open up a group, so if I like export 10 images out of Lightroom, Photo Mechanic will find that folder automatically, have them all selected, and I can just immediately go in here and start adding metadata to those. That's also been a huge time saver for me, if that makes any sense.
Where's the best place to learn about more advanced features like setting up code replacements, hot codes, etc.?
We do have a YouTube channel, and we do have, let's call this. So our documentation site, docs.camerabits.com. We have a little bit of a knowledge base here, which has a lot of articles on here on how to do things. A lot of things in here, and some of these do have videos, but we also on our, let's do YouTube. Let's see what we got here. Camerabits Inc. So in here we've got a lot of some getting started. What is Photo Mechanic? We've got some. These aren't really organized very well in this particular thing. Oh, we have some playlists. That's what they're doing. So yeah, so we have some Photo Mechanics on some startup. But here's like an absolute basics thing. There's me in the corner, very entertaining. Greetings from Camerabits HQ. Stop that. So those are a couple different sources.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
And like I said, our tech support is free, and it is. It's free even if you're on a trial. We recently just extended. It used to be a 30-day free trial. We're now doing 90-day free trials. We know a lot of folks are maybe having a little bit of liquidity issues with the lockdown, and a lot of people are dealing with not a lot of income coming in. So we extended our free trial to 90 days, and we'll give you full support. If you're just trying it out and you're like, I need to know how this works with Capture One, I want to make sure that all my metadata gets passed over. Can you help me with that? Like, we're more than happy to do that. Like I said, we're available on the phone. I mean, it's not a toll-free number, but it is free phone support. And we have folks here that will answer and talk to you and even just give you advice on your workflow. If it's not necessary, like a technical issue, but you just want to know how to do something, they're more than happy to go through it, walk you through it. They can do screen sharing with you and do demos as well.
Cool. Chris Parent also has a comment. He said, I'd also recommend the Camera Bits forum for that. So I know I've gotten a lot of good information off from the Camera Bits forum as well. Yeah,
the lead developer who's been with Camera Bits for many, many years, Kirk, he's probably a little too active here. Sometimes we wish he would spend less time talking with customers, but we know it's a great thing. He will give direct feedback and work with folks on some of their thornier issues. So that's kind of a unique thing with Photo Mechanic. I mean, not unique, but it is fairly rare for a program to have that level of developer engagement with the user. So yeah, definitely check out the forums.
Well, great. We're hitting the end of the hour right now. Is there any last questions for Mick? Does anybody want to just throw something in before we close?
I hope this was helpful. I went through, I said, I used to shoot concerts back when I was in Southern California. I would go to a lot of festivals, and I remember being in my car at 3 in the morning after the festival, like just trying my darndest to get this stuff all sorted. And if I had Photo Mechanic back then, I wish I had known about it. It would have saved me so much time.
Well, there's several good comments in here. The one that Matt Kishore made was he's thankful for knowing the discount price, so that being able to save the boss's money in the future. So,
yep, it's so when you buy a license of Photo Mechanic 6, you'll get anything we put out in the next year. You get that for free. We do periodic what we call build updates, which are just little bug fixes. Those are always free. But when it comes time to upgrade, our current upgrade price. So if you have Photo Mechanic 5. And if you have Photo Mechanic 5 and you purchased it in 2018 or later, that's a completely free upgrade to Photo Mechanic 6. So we extended that. But if you have it Photo Mechanic 5 and say you purchased it prior to 2018, the upgrade price is $89.
Is there a Photo Mechanic 7 coming soon, or do we?
I would not say soon. We definitely have it's on the whiteboard, and we've done some look and some preliminary stuff, but really focusing on the plus and getting that beta is all our development efforts are currently on that.
Great. Well, Mick, I really appreciate all the time you spent with us, and appreciate Photo Mechanic as a program. It's always been good for me. So
thanks. And if anyone has any further topics, you can even email me directly. I'm mick@camerabits.com. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find someone who does.
Perfect. Thanks, Mick.
Hey, thank you guys.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next week.